I am a low-quality caretaker hired by the Fu family. I had hoped to avoid decades of detours. One day, Fu Yanqi unexpectedly tore off my barrier patch. He interrogated me harshly. Do you want me or the inhibitor? In the presence of the high-ranking alpha, my pheromones surged like a long-dormant volcano awakening, boiling over. I want the inhibitor. 1. A waft of alpha pheromones unexpectedly enveloped the living room, prompting me to anxiously push open the door. The potent aroma enveloped me instantaneously, rendering my legs weak with an overwhelming urge to submit. Fu Yanqi seemed transformed, his eyes ablaze with a crimson hue, exuding an aura of danger. Alarm bells rang in my mind, and although I instinctively attempted to flee, I was swiftly pulled back. The intoxicating potency of the high-grade pheromones could affect even the most inferior of OS. There are suppressants in the drawer. Let me assist you, Fu Yanqi. A sharp pain pierced my nape as Fu Yanqi tore away my inhibitor patch, forcefully grasping my hand and pressing it against his lower abdomen. His breath was heavy. Help me. Impossible. An inferior O could never match with a high-ranking A. My assistance would be futile, even if I were inclined to comply. Yet, I underestimated the profound effects of the dynamic between A and O. My pulse raced erratically, threatening to explode. To make matters worse, Fu Yanqi remained still, his muscular form taunting me relentlessly. To hell with propriety, I was losing control. 100,000 as a deal. A cold laugh echoed in my ear as Fu Yanqi tightened his grip around my waist, his voice laced with menace. That depends on whether you are worth that price. 2 months prior, the elusive young master of the Fu family finally returned, a dragon whose tail was seldom seen. Having just secured a position as a housekeeper, I meticulously timed my entrance, bowing respectfully as I opened the door. Good evening, young Master Fu. How may I assist you? Who sent you here? Before I could straighten my posture, the towering man pressed me against the wall. What was happening? Remembering the contract in my pocket, I hurriedly reached for it, only to have my hand pinned firmly against the wall. Was it customary to be thrust against the wall upon first meeting? Was I mistaken for a thief? Young master, this is a misunderstanding. The warmth of his breath and the coldness of his voice lingered behind me. Prove it. My heart raced as I nodded eagerly. I have come to work as your housekeeper. Here is the contract. I signed it. Just before he released my hand, I feared I might meet an unjust fate here. What utter nonsense. An ill-mannered, uncouth young master. The bar for the wealthy has truly fallen. Why not let me take a turn at it? Before I could finish my retort, the arrogant young master turned away, indifferent to my plight, declaring, no matter who sent you, leave immediately. I have no need for you. That would not do. Breaking the contract would incur a penalty. I hastily picked up the contract from the floor, reading aloud. But there is a clause stating that one cannot leave for any reason, or else compensation of 30 billion is required. Damn, was this a contract for servitude? With no means to pay even a fraction of that amount, I panicked. It's not me. I certainly lack the funds. Perhaps you could advance me first? The young master snatched the contract from my grasp, exhaling heavily. Do you have any idea what 10 billion is? 10 billion is merely 10 billion. As long as I secured my position, it mattered little to me. If he could not produce the sum, I would not be leaving. No wealthy individual could possibly conjure 10 billion at a moment's notice. The young master's expression grew colder, yet he seemed unable to act against me, ultimately warning, do not appear before me again. Initially concerned about potential inconveniences in cohabiting with an alpha, it now seemed that my situation was rather agreeable. Nevertheless, I still had obligations to fulfill. Young master, your supper is ready. I knocked on his door, then hurried away with the speed of a rabbit. 3. The following day, I awoke half an hour early, only to find I was still a bit late. Just as young Master Fu descended the stairs, I happened to cross paths with him while carrying breakfast. His indifferent gaze swept over me, as unyielding as ever. Such things need not be done in the future. Huh? His condescending stare bore down upon me, imbued with disdain, until it settled upon me, delivering a chilling remark. If you wish to stay, you must suppress those sordid thoughts about me. I was utterly baffled. How could such a narcissistic individual exist? Is being an alpha truly so exceptional? Is wealth the sole measure of worth? Is beauty the only criterion for admiration? What nonsensical reasoning! Today, I would make it clear to him that he ought not to look down upon others. Fu Yanqi, halt. I secured this position through a legitimate interview. $8,000 might be mere pocket change to you, but this opportunity was hard-earned. Hence, young Master Fu, you need not overthink it. I will not interfere with anything beyond work, nor do I harbor any ulterior motives toward you. The exhilaration of delivering my speech was unparalleled. I stood tall, unwavering in the face of Fu Yanqi. After all, the contract was signed with his mother. Unless I could be freed from the penalty, no one would be able to dismiss me. Fu Yanqi seemed taken aback that I possessed a temper of my own. His previously inflated ego diminished somewhat. You'd best remember your words. What a person. Merely fortunate in birth. He ought to experience the harsh realities of life. Pa, narcissist. And an alpha at that, tch. Which would ever desire you. 4. As a housekeeper, the most fundamental duty is to maintain the cleanliness of the household, which naturally includes the master's quarters. While AOs are different, inferior OS cannot be classified as such. They are more meticulous than betas in caring for others. I surmised that Lady Ling must have selected me for this very reason to serve as a housekeeper. Alas, the young master's excessive suspicion made him difficult to please. Just as I pondered this, a sudden voice pierced the air. What are you doing? Instinctively, my soapy hands rose in surrender as I replied, just washing clothes. Does washing clothes require you to come into my room? Fu Yanqi narrowed his eyes, seemingly piecing something together, then glanced at the basin. What is in there? Underwear. I gestured outside while softly explaining, I saw it lying there, so I thought I'd dewash it. I could almost see the veins in his temples throbbing. Fu Yanqi clenched his jaw, sneaking into my room to steal Alpha's underwear. Do you have no sense of shame? Huh? What do you mean by stealing? Besides, that underwear is far too large for me to even consider. His words irked me, and I began to argue with fervor. I was merely being kind, hand-washing your underwear. Instead of gratitude, I'm met with accusations. Do you know that other housekeepers simply toss it in a machine? I willingly choose to wash it by hand. Yet, you have the audacity to complain? I felt justified in my actions. Fu Yanqi's voice grew low, his towering frame blocking my escape. As an inferior I did possess some sense. I had no time to rinse off the suds from my hands, bending slightly to make my getaway. It's my duty. Really, you needn't worry. In the next moment, his fingers tightened around my wrist, nearly crushing it. Let you go? Fu Yanqi crossed his arms, standing to the side. I will watch you wash. What was this, a game of reluctant acceptance? The thoughts of the wealthy were truly inscrutable. However, with the owner of the clothing watching from the side, I felt compelled to hasten my task. I quickly rubbed the fabric, rinsed, and wrung it out. All right, it's done. Fu Yanqi slightly turned, his gaze fixated on my hand holding the underwear, exhaling a breath. Hand-washing underwear. Consider that quite the skill. Stop. What now, young master? I vowed that from this day forth, even if the clothing became foul, I would refrain from meddling. Does young Master Fu require anything else? He seemingly regarded me with a deeper meaning and casually remarked, There is a meeting this afternoon. Prepare the clothes I will wear. Has your brain short-circuited? Or has a faulty connection been restored? You ask for something and then retract it. 5. Lady Ling made a sudden visit, waving her hand and declaring, For your excellent work, I shall raise your salary. Being a housekeeper was indeed advantageous, saving me years of detours. I smiled and offered polite remarks before swiftly preparing my signature dish. Little did I know, the living room was abuzz with excitement. Fu Yanqi bluntly stated, What exactly do you intend to achieve by bringing in an inferior Lady Ling, dropping all pretense, replied, The engagement has fallen through. I shall not pressure you into marriage anymore, nor will I insist on treatment, provided this inferior remains by your side. Is there any significance to this? You may harbor a disdain for omega pheromones, yet it is impossible to harbor any aversion towards an omega themselves. Do you truly believe one can? Such a strikingly handsome youth. Is it not the case that all you alphas find this appealing? After all, the thrill lies in the art of personal training. Does it not? A candid assessment indeed. Fu Yanqi remained silent. Lady Ling took a sip of the tea brewed by the maid, remarking, With your demeanor, it is likely that people will flee. The eldest son of our family seems to be losing his wits again. Are you certain you wish to bring me along? If memory serves, I am merely a maid without even a certificate to my name, and certainly not favored by the young master. SNT at the secretaries and assistants who handle business trips? Fu Yan raised an eyebrow slightly. Do you have an objection? Or do you wish to decline? You may leave at once. In the Fu household, the young master reigns supreme. His actions surely hold merit. All for the sake of work. I consoled myself inwardly. But how much? Fu Yanxi, without limits. What a coincidence. My earnings also know no bounds. We sped along the road, directly towards the company headquarters. Hundreds of pairs of eyes scrutinizing the little O who had suddenly appeared beside young Master Fu, whispering amongst themselves. If word of this got out, how would I face others in the future? I had intended to treat you as an ATM, yet you cannot treat your nest as a cozy abode. Can you? A maid transforming into an assistant? Or perhaps a maid becoming a secretary? Lacking the qualifications, yet seeking to find a way in? I may love money, but I possess principles, for heaven's sake. At least not in front of the company personnel, absolutely not. Young Master Fu, I regret to inform you that you may be disappointed. I understand the wisdom of not taking on tasks beyond one's capability, thus I suggest you seek another. Fu Yanxi replied, the bolder the person, the greater the harvest. What say you, assistant you? The attendees of the meeting turned their gazes towards me. Who? Me? Ah yes, indeed. Wait, what was just said? It seems there was a discussion of some major project. But do I know anything about that? I am merely a maid. The skyscrapers gleamed with opulence, as if I could pry off a brick and secure my entire future with it. What of assistant you? If a Fu has an eye on me, it's merely because I am inexpensive, being an O who lacks the fragility of others, thus merely a pawn to shield against drink. No more drinking, I cannot indulge any further. A table full of people raising glasses in toasts. No matter how well one can drink, one cannot hold it all in. I hunched over, clutching my stomach, barely able to walk steadily, relying solely on a thread of willpower to endure. I need to use the restroom. In the midst of commercial competition, one cannot withdraw midway. Fu Yanxi had also consumed considerable amounts of alcohol, perhaps struck by a pang of conscience. He half-dragged me towards a private room. Just hold on for another minute. 60 seconds. I truly cannot bear it any longer. 1 second equals $100, Fu Yanxi stated. This was perhaps the fastest and most arduous money I have ever earned in my life. Upon entering the restroom, I was already unbuttoning my trousers before I even reached the stall, so preoccupied that I paid no heed to anything else. My expensive suit lay crumpled at my feet, and after a minute or so, a long sigh of relief escaped me. My alcohol-fogged brain, upon locking eyes with Fu Yanxi for 10 seconds, stumbled across a glaring realization. AOs are different. You've been completely exposed, you fool. Damn it. What was even more mortifying was that as I reached out to touch something, only to find no trousers in reach, though it was far too late, whatever should not have been seen had likely been seen. I, with a slender waist and long legs, certainly did not fear exposure. Yet who goes to the restroom in such a state? To my surprise, Fu Yanxi scrutinized me from head to toe, disdainfully commenting, rest assured, your figure is devoid of allure. More painful than being seen. How dare he? Surely his gaze was almost glazed over. I indignantly pulled up my trousers and seized Fu Yanxi, demanding, where is my money? Don't even think about shirking your debts. Perhaps due to the alcohol. My face burned. The air felt stifling, igniting a sense of irritation within me. The young master, of course, would not quibble over a trifling sum. It was my own embarrassment and fury that caused me to act impulsively. Yet, unexpectedly, he grasped my hand, pulling me closer, forcing me to look up at him. You should promptly retreat to your bed. There's still time. Staring at the handsome visage magnified before me, my legs felt weak, and strangely, his words about being devoid of desire ignited a fire within me. Alcohol emboldened the timid, and the self-defense techniques I had learned years ago suddenly came into play. I swiftly extricated my trapped hand and seized Fu Yanxi's tie, pulling it downwards. What? Just because I helped you, you wish to turn against me? As I spoke, I intentionally exhaled towards him. In that moment, Fu Yanxi appeared to be simmering with barely restrained fury. Do not forget your position. Position? Donning a custom-tailored outfit. If I remained silent, who would suspect that the one drinking was merely a maid from a wealthy family? All notions of status were meaningless. I absent-mindedly scratched my ear, utterly oblivious to the disarray, and provocatively smiled. I don't know. I'm just drunk. Perhaps it was not drunkenness but a full stomach that gave me such audacity. Given this, I would consider it drunkenness. Fu Yanqi's eyes darkened, and in the next moment, I found myself tossed onto the luxurious bed, bouncing twice, my head spinning, my stomach churning. As my vision finally focused, I beheld Fu Yanqi tearing off his tie violently, revealing a well-defined chest and taut muscles beneath. Who would have thought that beneath an unassuming exterior lay such allure, with broad shoulders tapering to a narrow waist, a physique that many would dream of? No, I might truly be intoxicated. Otherwise, how could I find Fu Yanqi's actions appealing? Are you mad? Why are you throwing me? I protested, shaking my head as I sat up. Just be yourself. Along with his deep voice came the potent alpha pheromones. Crap! I had forgotten he was a top-tier alpha. Even a subpar O pales in comparison to a top-tier A. I scrambled to my feet, the alcohol jolting me awake. Wait, calm down. I'll go find you an inhibitor. Fu Yanqi pinned me down, his scorching breath grazing my neck, his grip on my hand terrifyingly hot, like a wolf that had caught its prey. I love money, but I am not willing to sacrifice myself for it. I could find a substitute. Just open your eyes and see clearly. I'm your maid, bound by contract. Ha! Fu Yanqi sneered, his alpha pheromones bursting forth with intensity. Shut up. Do you wish for everyone to know? Or have you wasted so much alcohol for nothing? Look at this. Trying to save a penny only to suffer a loss. If you need someone to shield against drink, you ought to find a professional. Yet I was beyond caring, clinging to his arm in desperation. Young Master Fu, please, I'm just a low-grade O without an effective inhibitor. Crying is futile, Fu Yanqi replied coldly. Yet the pheromones surged in a frenzy. Trust me. I 1T mark you completely. I wish to resign. I hope for your permission, young Master Fu. Who would have thought that the one who clung on so desperately at the beginning would now wish to flee as far away as possible? The situation had escalated beyond my expectations. I had underestimated the malice of alphas and overestimated my own capabilities, yet I had also come to recognize the treachery of human nature, ever unpredictable. The money owed has already been deposited into your account, Fu Yanqi asserted, exuding an air of authority, as if it were all preordained. There is no need to dwell on that incident. It was merely an accident. Speaking casually from his seat, he appeared unscathed, while I, the one wronged, bore the brunt of it. It's easy for you to say you are not the one being bullied. After all, the only difference between me and a typical O is a slight variation in physical condition. It's not as if no one would want me. In the future, I can still find an excellent beta to live alongside. Had it not been for the alcohol and the allure of pheromones, I would never have committed such a disgraceful act. Young Master Fu was already dissatisfied with me. He could easily find a professional maid or carry around some miraculous pills and inhibitors. Very well, Fu Yanqi responded swiftly, though whether it was my imagination or not. His smile bore a distinctly sinister undertone. Just be prepared to pay the penalty for breaking the contract, and you may leave at any time. How foolish. Only at that moment did I realize that the contract I signed was clearly a deed of servitude. Sold and still counting the profits. However, I find myself devoid of funds. Not even a fraction of a penny can I produce. If you assist me, would it not also serve your own interests? Consider it merely a withdrawal from the bank, only to be returned, and I shall cover the transaction fees. Fu Yanqi gazed at me as though I were a fool, then proceeded to wash his clothes, declaring that this month I had achieved perfect attendance. I felt despondent, left with a monthly income that barely surpassed 10,000, and the only alternative was to endure the bitter winds of hardship. Perhaps Fu Yanqi was indeed correct. There was no need to fret over a minor mishap. We are all adults, and possessing a bit of private life is quite normal. Let it be an indulgence, and given Fu Yanqi's circumstances, it seems I still stand to gain. A top-tier alpha indulging a substandard omega carries a certain prestige. Weighing the pros and cons, I cleared my throat. It would be better for me to wash the young master's clothes myself. I shall take to the kitchen. Once the door closed behind me, the alpha pheromones erupted uncontrollably, and no one knew how the composed and stoic young master of the Fu family swiftly opened the drawer and administered a dose of suppressants to himself. The greatest flaw of a subpar omega, in the eyes of an alpha, lies in the insufficient secretion of pheromones, failing to offer effective solace. Last night's experience was akin to drinking poison to quench thirst. The garments hanging on the balcony had vanished once again, and I could only wonder what kind of strange wind had swept them away. Come here, help me with my tie. Fu Yanqi stood in the living room, his fitted attire accentuating his broad shoulders and narrow waist, exuding an air of striking charisma. An inexplicable image flashed through my mind, causing my face to flush. I hastily averted my gaze. Young master, I cannot. To my surprise, Fu Yanqi grasped my hand directly. I will teach you. What did he mean by that? Upon lifting my gaze, I found myself ensnared by his deep, captivating eyes, and I swallowed hard. I recalled, yes, I could tie a tie. Saying this, I swiftly fashioned the tie with the finesse of a red scarf. Fu Yanqi smirked slightly, his eyes falling upon the awkward knot. I expect to see your progress by tomorrow. Understood, young master. After sending him off, I discovered, much to my astonishment, that my missing clothes were on Fu Yanqi's bed while cleaning. It felt as though I had been struck by lightning, akin to being harassed by a perverse gaze in the middle of the street. Surely it must be a misunderstanding. Yes, it must be. During dinner, I struggled to hold my tongue but eventually voiced my thoughts. Young master, I saw my clothes on your bed today. Fu Yanqi leisurely set down his utensils and looked at me. Is that so? How did your clothes end up in my possession? Indeed, why? Are you a pervert? Young master? Accusing me of stealing your undergarments, and now we find the evidence together. How will you explain this? My clothes do not possess legs. They could not have walked there on their own. A brief silence ensued. I ultimately conceded. Could it be that a mouse entered your home? His penetrating gaze made me uneasy, and Fu Yanqi smirked. Then you should be quick to catch it. Catch what? This isn't a cement house. Where would a mouse come from? Yet, returning to the matter at hand, what could Fu Yanqi possibly want with my clothes? Even if it were some peculiar proclivity, my scant pheromones would dissipate with a mere breeze, rendering any nefarious intent impossible. Thus, it must surely be a misunderstanding. Assistant Yu, good day. Since that incident, I had become quite popular at the company. Xiao Li approached me with a warning. President Fu is in a foul mood today. Tread carefully. How could someone in a bad mood consume so much? I knocked on the door, and upon entering, I found Fu Yanqi reclining in his chair, revealing his alluring throat and collarbone, the outline of his Adam's apple subtly visible. An inexplicable itch arose in my throat. Young master, eat while it's still warm. Soon, the table was laden with my signature dishes. Fu Yanqi loosened a few buttons of his shirt, saying, help me with a shoulder massage. Thankfully, this time, I was spared the task of picking out the scallions, ginger, and garlic from my cooking. From my vantage point, it was all too easy to notice the vulnerable nape of his neck. Does one not know that staring at another's glands is a form of indecency? Even if you are an omega, that is still unacceptable. Did he possess eyes at the back of his head? Caught in the act. My face felt as though it were aflame. I didn't mean to. Oh, were you hoping to observe more closely? Fu Yanqi turned his head, his gaze inscrutable, as if he were aware that this constituted sexual harassment. I admit I have a slight inclination towards aesthetics, and Fu Yanqi, by chance, possesses a certain charm. I had indeed looked twice when he entered, but I swear it was purely curiosity and nothing more. I harbored no intentions of harassment or impropriety. I am not that kind of person. Let us just forget it this time. Suddenly, Fu Yanqi decided not to pursue the matter further. Changing his tune, continue with the massage. The young master has changed. He increasingly enjoys toying with others. Taking a leave of absence? What is the reason? Naturally, I had made plans to unwind with friends. I'm approaching my heat cycle. The universal excuse for leave. Fu Yanqi appeared unconvinced. Does a subpar omega require a week? I cannot squander the rare opportunity that comes only once a year. You know how slow a subpar omega is to recover. Conversely, due to insufficient pheromone secretion, the heat cycle does not exert much effect, or rather, a good night's sleep suffices. Fu Yanqi is well aware of this. At most, it lasts 3 days. Of course, I recognize this too, which is precisely why I intended to request a 3-day leave. Wifey, wifey, wifey. Darling, darling, darling. After a long separation, Su Shu lifted me and spun me around. At last, I've managed to lure you out. Let me see, have you gained weight while playing the housekeeper? The Fu family's meals are indeed unparalleled, but having finally secured a break, I had no desire to discuss the troublesome young master. Come. Let us drink until we're senseless tonight. As I sipped my drink, my phone lit up. It was a message from Fu Yanqi. I was taken aback that he remembered to check on me. I'm feeling a bit unwell, but it's nothing. Is that so? Then be sure to rest well. What is happening? Su Shu craned his neck to glance at my phone, baffled as to why this thing would concern itself with me. I rolled my eyes internally. Perhaps because I was absent, he lacked someone to heed his commands. Quite the life you lead. No wonder you're a young master, having your meals served and clothes brought to you. We chatted for quite a while, and I recounted all the ways Fu Yanqi typically commanded me, causing Su Shu to shake his head in disbelief. As I approached the restroom, I noticed the corridor lights seemed to be malfunctioning. In search of my phone, I suddenly found myself confronted by a person behind me, caught off guard as my hands were seized, pressing me against the wall of the stall. Judging by his height and strength, he was undoubtedly an alpha, but who in their right mind would ambush someone in such a manner? Big brother, I have no money. Let us just pretend nothing happened. His hands. What is this man doing? I was dressed in shorts today with only one pocket. Why was he groping me from behind, even squeezing? Brother, say something, we can negotiate. This was a disastrous predicament. Not only could I not break free, but I appeared utterly defenseless. The thought of this darkened space, if it were not for robbery but rather something more sinister, would explain his incessant groping. My friend will be here shortly. If you let me go now, I won't hold it against you. Just as I spoke, a large hand clamped tightly over my mouth. Let us move to the other side. Once he stepped away, the man leaned in close to my ear, whispering, friends, are they referring to them? I wanted to shake my head but felt his fingertips wandering across the nape of my neck. What is this? The man lifted the edge of the barrier, as if poised to tear it away. Of course, he did just that. I am a subpar omega. My pheromones are faint, rendering me incapable of being marked by an alpha, but that does not guarantee success is impossible. Should he succeed, I would be unable to wash away the consequences for life. Clearly, this sudden pervert was motivated by more than mere curiosity. I must take the initiative and find a way to escape. Brother, I've never used a barrier. Are you an alpha? Perhaps I could teach you something. Teach me what? Men truly understand men. Noticing his interest, I playfully rubbed against his leg, saying, darling, whatever you desire. I am more than capable of fulfilling it. Surely, it is more pleasurable than being alone. Just wait. Once I successfully entice you, I shall make you regret ever casting your gaze upon me. How amusing it is to see you playfully engaged. Ah, yes, I see your heart racing. Loosen your grip, and I shall bestow upon you a taste of my prowess in martial arts. Just average, I mused, as I eagerly nodded, oblivious to any discordant sounds. A sharp crack echoed, startling even the malfunctioning voice-activated lights into illumination. I froze, and then, the cool, composed visage of Fu Yanqi appeared before me, his eyes veiled in shadow. You possess an audacity that is astonishing. Is this what you refer to as your heat phase? More like a phase of wantonness. My rear end throbbed with a fiery discomfort, and I found myself unable to utter a sound, paralyzed by a mixture of shock and pain. What on earth was happening? Fu Yanqi was present. Where had the earlier pervert gone? In the speeding luxury car, the atmosphere was chillingly tense. Young master, I admit my fault. There is no such heat phase. I merely wish to go out with friends. Fu Yanqi's brow furrowed in agitation. Be silent. You reek of alcohol, like a drunken fool. I sniffed my clothes. Aside from the scent of liquor, there lingered a faint hint of mint, hardly offensive. Yet considering the high maintenance costs of luxury vehicles, I instinctively shrank toward the window. Just then, darkness enveloped me as Fu Yanqi tossed his jacket over my shoulders. Put it on, and come help me with my legs. Ah, the ever-familiar Fu Yanqi, forever commanding. Yet why must I, a mere nanny, also partake in the duties of a lover? Such a mismatch, young Master Fu. Fu Yanqi, however, remained unperturbed, a smirk gracing his lips. Who was it that just moments ago attempted to entice me with flirtations? Damn it, that was merely a tactic. I stole a guilty glance at the driver, my face burning with embarrassment. Young Master Fu, you initiated this. He regarded me with a look that seemed to say, take your time, I'm listening, as I resolved that since I was too intoxicated, it would be best to sleep it off. Yes, I had overindulged. Surely, upon awakening, everything would return to normal. I slept deeply until the sun hung high in the sky. Habitually seeking my sleeping companion, I was startled to find myself in Fu Yanqi's room. Thankfully, the spacious bed was devoid of another presence. My clothes were still intact, and I sighed in relief, although a lingering warmth at the nape of my neck suggested something was amiss. Perhaps I had inadvertently brushed against something while tearing off the barrier stickers. I paid it no mind. Upon stepping out of the room, I was met with the sight of Fu Yanqi seated on the sofa, seemingly having awaited my arrival for some time. There was no escaping what was inevitable. Did I fall asleep yesterday? I hope I didn't do anything strange. I stammered, my memory hazy. What do you think? Fu Yanqi queried. Ordinarily, when I drank, I merely slept soundly. I would never end up in someone else's bed. Last night, you clung to me and refused to let go. Even the driver was at a loss, he revealed. In truth, it was he who insisted on holding me, while the driver, attempting to assist, had been met with a glare. Clothing was torn in the process, and so, out of necessity, I was placed upon his bed for the night. Clearly, ever since indulging in a taste of sweetness, he had become enamored, showering me with affection and being overly affectionate to the point of causing damage, all while lamenting the faintness of my pheromones. As he indulged in the scent of my neck, should I lift my shirt, the evidence of his handiwork would be plainly visible on my back. How utterly absurd. I must have lost my mind. Perhaps, Fu Yanqi mused, alcohol has clouded your judgment. I vowed never to drink again. With renovations underway downstairs, I opted to bathe here, and after a night of restless sleep, I truly needed to wash. My mind was a chaotic whirlwind as I entered the bathroom, unaware that I had become the target of the alpha lurking behind me. Unfortunately, the quality of my pheromones was woefully inadequate, and last night, it had only been through the most direct means that he had detected even a hint of them. However, with the allure of high-grade alpha pheromones, he was confident he could soon train me to his liking. Suddenly, he confessed an unexpected vulnerability. Fu Yanqi had a condition where he would vomit upon encountering omega pheromones. For years, he had relied on a plethora of suppressants, and upon suddenly inhaling my pheromones, long suppressed, he lost control. Lady Ling sought me out precisely because of the scarcity of my inferior pheromones, hoping to utilize this situation as treatment. No wonder my clothes often went missing, and why I had been permitted to sleep in his bed. No wonder I awoke covered in red spots. This was outrageous. Had I not been lying on a hospital bed at this moment, I would hardly believe it. Good news, the doctor announced. Your glands have undergone secondary development due to the stimulation from alpha pheromones. Bad news, he continued. You have been marked and will find yourself more dependent on your partner than a typical omega. My eyes widened as I turned toward Fu Yanqi. Rest assured, this is only temporary. Temporary, yet daunting. I interjected, Doctor, could there be a mistake? I am an inferior omega. Oh, that, the doctor adjusted his glasses, smiling slightly. Your partner is a high-grade alpha. It is entirely possible with repeated attempts. What could that possibly mean? His smile was disconcerting. Although this was an accident, I found myself benefiting from it. Firstly, I was liberated from the label of inferiority, and secondly, how about you compensate me a bit? After all, I am just a nanny. Certainly, what else do you desire? Fu Yanqi had just bathed, and the marks on his chest made my ears flush. Now I understood what the doctor meant by dependence. Is it permissible for me to request pheromones? I asked softly, feeling insecure, as Fu Yanqi was not truly my partner. Yet he was generous, enveloping me in his embrace, his pheromones cascading around me. What about your pheromones? Shouldn't there be reciprocity? That was a fair point, but aren't you disgusted? Am I to be the cause of your gland's secondary development while you vomit? His warm breath brushed against my ear, stirring my senses. Not at all. I realized that perhaps I had been ensnared by the allure of pheromones. Do you require my assistance in your treatment? Thus, the situation spiraled out of control. Young Master Fu needed a companion for sleep, and I filled that role. He required a dining partner, and I stepped in. When it came to work, I was still there. Being too close often led to undesirable outcomes, and I cautiously remarked, isn't pheromone treatment sufficient? Fu Yanqi pulled me into his embrace, stating, your pheromones are far too weak. Rest assured, I will not overstep. Is that so? Then what are your hands doing? Before I could voice my complaint, my lips were captured by his. Undeniably, his pheromones were abundant. Young Master Fu, one must not kiss indiscriminately. I'll raise your salary. This isn't about money, I retorted. All alphas are deceivers. 10,000 yuan received via Alipay. The following morning, Fu Yanqi, bare-chested and invigorated, declared, "This is your reward." I clutched my phone, my thoughts a tangled mess. It felt somewhat akin to payment for services rendered. Is it so? Rest assured, you are worth much more. If you are interested, feel free to seek me out. As I spoke, Fu Yanqi began changing clothes before my very eyes. Despite my attempts to avert my gaze, I caught a glimpse, and recalling that marking incident, my cheeks flushed crimson beneath the covers. I was finally no longer an inferior omega. The test results revealed that my pheromone concentration had significantly increased, and I was about to enter a heat phase lasting anywhere from 3 days to a week. I had never experienced such a phase, not even for 3 days. Thus, the doctor advised that I needed an alpha to help me through, or I could face life-threatening risks. This was utterly disastrous. Yet Fu Yanqi expressed his willingness to assist me. An alpha, though I had my doubts about his intentions, I had no better options. That night, my pheromones became uncontrollable, irresistibly urging me to draw closer to Fu Yanqi. After spending several days in his company, I understood that only he could assist me. To my dismay, the predicament re-emerged, and once again, I found myself ensnared. Fu Yanqi released his pheromones, yet gripped my jaw with an unrelenting cruelty. Choose me or the suppressor. Faced with this deadly temptation, my mind was consumed by an insatiable yearning for Fu Yanqi, to the point where I could scarcely resist throwing myself at him, showering him with affectionate kisses. "I want you. Give yourself to me." Thus commenced a night of absurdity, spiraling beyond control. Madame Ling, seizing the opportune moment, found herself waiting outside for 3 long days and nights, finally catching sight of her semi-conscious future daughter-in-law. Anxiously pacing the living room, she exclaimed, "Goodness, have you completely exhausted her? Do you no longer desire a wife?" Fu Yanqi interjected, "Isn't this precisely what you wish to see?" A doctor emerged, adjusting his glasses. "The complete marking has taken a toll. The wound is slightly inflamed, but a couple of days' rest will suffice." Madame Ling struggled to suppress a smile. "Go on, he needs someone by his side. I shall personally prepare some nourishing soup for you both." In a daze, I heard someone calling my name. "Darling, wake up and eat something before you sleep again." Was Fu Yanqi addressing me as darling? The audacious alpha had never referred to me in such a manner before. Annoyed, I swatted at the air, inadvertently landing a hit. As I opened my eyes, I inquired, "Who are you? Handsome?" Fu Yanqi pressed my hand to his face, and for reasons unbeknownst to me, he seemed to radiate an alluring glow that captivated my attention. "Darling, are you hungry?" His unusually red lips moved enticingly, and I gradually realized he was speaking to me. I nodded in a daze until I recognized every familiar corner of the room, the memories flooding back. I was aghast. How had I, as a mere caretaker, allowed myself to become so entangled? Reflecting on my actions, I felt a wave of embarrassment wash over me, burying my head beneath the covers. Is this something that can be resolved with money? Fu Yanqi's response was resolute. "I'm afraid not. You must take responsibility. Then let us first obtain our marriage certificate, then proceed with the wedding." "Huh? Marriage?" Indeed, fearing that I might retract my commitment, we registered online to obtain our marriage certificate that very day. Fu Yanqi became my husband, and at last, he could openly indulge in his desire to claim me as his own. A trap, undoubtedly a trap. From the moment I took on the role of caretaker and first laid eyes on him, Fu Yanqi had likely set his sights on me. Unbeknownst to me, I had developed a burgeoning attraction during our time together. I recalled when he had said that if I behaved, he would not mark me, and I found myself not at all worried, but rather somewhat eager. As a subpar omega, I was not typically favored by alphas, yet it did not mean I was impervious to the charms of a handsome alpha. However, my status had always held me back from indulging in such thoughts. Thus, my affection for Fu Yanqi, and my suggestion to resolve matters with money, perhaps stemmed from a desire to escape something deeper. When I first cradled the face of my alpha, yearning to draw even closer, "I want your pheromones." Fu Yanqi kissed me. "Choose me or the pheromones." This was yet another dilemma, but this time, I possessed a new answer. "I choose my husband." Fu Yanqi's reaction did not disappoint. He loved me. I too cherished him. The story concludes here. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to our next tale together.